Look at that. We have a nice video. All right, everybody, welcome to Mercari Gears. Thanks a lot for coming, for joining us. And today we wanted to show a little bit of what we are thinking in terms of this interesting topic. AI is bringing a lot of new tools for us to leverage, to accelerate the way we develop things. But that also can introduce new issues. So today's conversation, I wanted to bring this topic and discuss a few things with some of our leaders from Brad and Michael, because you work on interesting areas in which we are also sort of like taking actions to avoid getting into troubles and ultimately enable our developers, our engineers to go bold and move fast. Before we jump into the discussion, maybe we can quickly introduce ourselves, because many of you probably don't know us. Maybe Brad, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, I'm Brad. Thank you for waving back. It's so nice to, yeah, it's like it's such a nice room here. It's like a nice size of people. I have been at Mercari for 8 years. I joined in California and I was in product management on the Mercari US team for 1 year, and then I came out to Tokyo and spent 6 years leading the US development team here in Japan, focused on the US. So we call it US at Tokyo. Starting this year, I moved to the Japan side of Mercari, and I'm now leading the data organization. Before Mercari, I've done a few startups. I worked at Google for a while. I worked in the healthcare data analytics startup for a while. Yeah.
Did you just say I did a few startups? I worked at Google for a little while.
A little bit, yeah. It's like, well, no, it was like my CV is basically like random startups that nobody's ever heard of, and Google.
You were also a product manager, actually, so you have an interesting blend of roles.
Yes.
You just leave. All right. Thank you, Brad, for joining us. Michael, do you want to go next?
Yeah, just very quickly. So, hello, everybody. I joined Mercari last year, around January time. I came also actually from California. Before Mercari, my entire career was in the Silicon Valley area. So I worked at companies like HashiCorp, and then before HashiCorp, startups as well. And Netflix was one of the more well-known names that I've been at, and Yahoo early on in my career. So at Mercari, I lead the platform engineering organization, which is the infrastructure, developer productivity, and business core section of the services.
All right, and myself, very quickly, my name is Carlos Donderis, although everybody calls me Katz. It's actually very strange to hear my name fully pronounced these days. I'm VP of Engineering in Marketplace. I work with Michael. I work with Motoki-san, Dit-san on product engineering, foundations, platform engineering, and also I'm responsible for Mercari India. I have been in Mercari for about 7 years. I joined as an engineering manager and grew through the different roles. Previously, I worked in a couple of Japanese companies, such as Sansan and GMO Internet Group. And before that, I'm originally from Spain. That's why I have this accent when I speak in English. I work as an engineer for a few companies over there. So that's that. And without further ado, because the time is running, actually it's running faster than I thought. Let's go with the first question. Like we have this conversation about move fast. We want to actually do more things, leverage AI to go faster, to find new interesting problems to solve. But maybe before jumping into the different specific things that we are doing, we should try to quantify what move fast means in the AI era. So what do you think?
The first thing that comes to mind with, like, you hear AI and move fast, we've seen a lot of examples of, oh, I need to write this long email, or I need to write an essay. My kids are in school, so it's like, oh, I don't have to spend all this time writing and spell checking. I can just ask AI to do it for me. So I think a lot of people, and I've fallen into this too, like think about moving fast as like, oh, we can just do the same thing we're doing faster. I can ask AI to do it for me. But I don't think that's the key to success, or like I don't want to focus on that. I'd rather like think about how we can stop waiting so much. There's so many times where I want to do something and I need help from somebody else, or I'm not sure how to do something, I need to read a book and study. If AI can help us break down the barrier to getting started or breaking down the barrier to getting help, I think that's what move fast means for me. I want less waiting for things.
Yeah, we have a lot of these situations from time to time. I'm waiting for somebody to reply my Slack messages, or I'm looking for somebody to review, or I need to wait for somebody to set up a meeting and try to understand a different system, a different service. And I think we were discussing about like this ability to unblock ourselves faster can help us to gain some speed. What about you, Michael? What do you think?
So the traditional role that platform engineering is meant to play is as an enabling organization to help engineering teams move quicker. And when you think about as AI has become part of the tool chain or tool set that engineers are able to use, and other parts of the business are able to use, it starts to create this new environment where, like you were talking about, move fast starts to change in terms of how quickly I can go from an idea to a prototype. And I think one of the most revolutionary things that AI is bringing into this is this idea that we're democratizing innovation, this idea that it's not just engineers anymore. So if I have a great idea, but maybe I either don't know how to write the code for that, or I don't know how to build a service for that, or maybe I don't have the expertise in mobile development or front-end engineering, now I don't have as many impediments to that work. So if I have a great idea, it's getting closer and closer to this situation where myself or maybe one other person can put together an actual working system and start to test that out. And I think when you think about the implications of that going forward, you start to get into the questions of how fast can we learn? How fast can we evaluate a good idea? And what are the things that keep us from being able to move that fast? What are the impediments that exist today, both in our tools as well as our processes, that restrict our ability to answer the question, is this a good idea that we should pursue? The faster we can answer that question from a product standpoint, from an engineering standpoint, from a business standpoint, the faster we're able to bring out innovation and ideas into the market. And that's going to be what differentiates the companies that have a rapid rise in services and value that they provide versus the ones that continue along the same course of execution that they're doing today.
I think you mentioned something that for me is quite interesting, which is democratize knowledge and being able to access information. I think, Brad, you mentioned also, and actually your team is working on this, being able to ask interesting questions. In Mercari, we do a lot of experiments, and sometimes we need to wait for a BI person to come up with the results. What about if we are able to actually at least get some insights, like from the data point of view?
Yeah, when I was talking about waiting for things, sometimes it's not like things actually take time. Sometimes there's like an emotional barrier to asking a question. If I'm asking somebody for help, I'm interrupting you from what your day job is, and I'm asking you to take time to help me. And we think about that a lot. But if we can, again, like democratize innovation, and like this, I can just ask AI and get a rough draft. I probably should, ask some questions and like double check it if I'm using it for an official report. But if we can ask an LLM to summarize something for us instead of waiting a week for another team to do it, that's great.
Oh, konnichiwa. So at least it gives you, it unblocks you basically. It gives you a head start. All right, let's go with the next topic. We have a few questions, and I think this is interesting. We are talking about going fast, like leverage AI, write code faster, ask questions faster. But it's all about like, okay, we are getting some results, but is this correct? Is this going to work in production? Is this actually accurate data? And it brings the discussion like we will gain speed, but also how we also think in terms of like, it's not only a speed, it's about the quality or it's about the stability. We don't want to introduce more issues or introduce instability to our system. So I think maybe for platform, this is, yeah, I see you body language. you want to jump into the, go ahead, Michael, please, go ahead.
No, I mean, I think, to me, this is one of the most exciting, I don't want to say most exciting times in platform engineering. I mean, I deeply love this domain, so it's been exciting for a long time. But this is one of those moments where you get to take a step back and you get to think about how is this going to change? Because humans aren't the only one now contributing code into your system. And increasingly, you're going to have changes and improvements happening entirely through agent-based development, which means you need to start coming up with different ways. The entire SDLC is going to change as a result of this. And we're already seeing some of this pressure happening on our systems where we have larger PRs coming through now. And when you have larger PRs or more frequent changes coming through, that puts a lot of pressure on some of the systems that you have in the entire delivery pipeline, including, like, for example, your CI systems. They start to run hotter. And we've been looking at this, and I've been asking questions like, why are we having to continue? We're seeing this rise in our costs and our infrastructure in this way, and it's because the way that systems in the workflow have been designed is expecting humans to be contributing code, and humans generally contribute code at a fairly consistent rate. Agents don't have that problem, and as you start to unblock that, now you have this other kind of problem that you need to address, and the entire workflow wasn't designed for that pace. And so you have to start looking at, okay, where is in using the theory of constraints, where are the constraints in this workflow, and how do we both shift things left so that the agent's able to rapidly make decisions, but also think about on the right side of things, because you're not going to be able to catch everything. How do you catch those issues in production and then rapidly remediate those problems? And both of those present some really interesting challenges. If you had a great test suite that caught 99.9% of all the changes, and in the past you maybe had 1,000 changes going through, that's not a big risk to your production systems. But now you have 100,000 changes going through. That's a much bigger problem, right? Your percentage of bad days are going to be much higher. And so that's where you have to start thinking about what are the systems that we have in place to be able to catch and remediate things when they're in production, not just how do we prevent changes to go through. The more prevention actions you take, the more constriction you put on that pipeline, and the slower your ability to innovate and improve will be. And that's exactly what you don't want to do. So in the moving fast without breaking things story, the truth is we're in the middle of trying to figure this out. I've got to be honest. This is one of the biggest challenges I think platform engineering is facing.
I don't think we are the only one that we are still trying to figure it out. And I think Kimura-san was mentioned before in his keynote, one important thing to some degree get better output from all this automation, all this code generation, the way LLMs works as of today is providing the right context, providing the right data. Like, you are the data expert, Brad. What do you think? What kind of things are you thinking in terms of provide the right data, the right context?
So, and shout out, Now and Koba-ken are going to talk about Project Socrates later this afternoon. Please attend their talk. So, in the context of Socrates or other AI-assisted data analysis tools, there are a lot of companies building things like that. We can't imagine that if we just we have 1,000 spreadsheets or terabytes of log data, and just say, hey, ChatGPT, go figure this out and tell me, what our marketing strategy should be next month. There's a really long distance between like the raw data and that analysis, and we need to set reasonable expectations for what AI can do.
But even if you ask this insane question, you will get some answer, right?
It'll happily give you an answer.
But you need to be able to also to figure it out. I think you mentioned something that it was interesting the other day. It's like educating people to have like educated guesses about whether the answers that you are getting are correct or not, right?
Yeah, we need to be able to check it. We need to have a feedback loop so that when we get that answer, it's easy to sanity check and make sure that either we have multiple sources or historical reports or something, but the AI needs to have more grounding in stable data. So what I wanted to say, the folk from Mercari have probably seen me write on the whiteboard, and I've got like this great, like end-to-end beautiful plan, starting from that raw data on the left all the way to the beautiful answers from AI on the right. It's important to do some foundational work to enable AI. We can't just expect AI to do everything for us. So in order to move fast, sometimes we need to do the slow work, the really foundational, boring work, in order to be able to do the awesome AI-enabled work.
Another thing that you mentioned before, and I think is interesting, maybe it connects to another of the topics, which is more related to how things will evolve in the future. But you mentioned a few things that we are also seeing the pain, like because we can generate pull requests faster, all CI/CD pipelines are being bombarded with that additional information, and like the test still takes the same time to run for every single one. So one of the pull requests that we created. Do you think like at some point we should even consider different ways to think in terms of QA even, or test automation, or CI/CD? That's a very, very loaded question, Mike.
I mean, in short, yes. The workflows that we have designed, I would say, had certain assumptions baked in to them, right? And I think we have to, so there's always the premature optimization problem. If we start to go after the problems we think we're going to see, we might actually be spending time on issues that are not actually the right problems, right? So to some extent, you kind of have to wait to see the system break a certain way before you go and you start to come up with a better answer to it. But what we do already know is cost-wise, it's not scalable in terms of having all changes have to go through and go through a CI process the way they're doing today. As you start to ramp up more changes going through the system, the cost profile continues to rise. So we have to figure out maybe either a change to being smarter about what tests we run, what kind of risk we're willing to take for changes to get into production or into a higher level environment, possibly even having different kinds of environments that allow for different types of tests that can be used to evaluate the changes that go through. So these are all kind of the open questions, and we're just talking about a cost profile. I think there's also again, going back to things like, do we have sufficient signals to know when something is tripping up in production, to know how to mitigate that? Could we automate the mitigation of that? Do we have enough information to know the changes to the systems across the entire company so that when something breaks, an intelligent response could be generated to take action on that? All of those are areas where, if you think about having AI actually being a first-class citizen in contribution of code and changes, you have to come up with an answer to that. If you do not, then your AI is bottlenecked by the humans.
Yeah, we keep having humans in the loop. All right, because we are running out of time. So let's go to the next question. I think this is an interesting one. It connects a little bit with few of the topics that we discussed already. Maybe we can go down to more specific initiatives that we are taking at Mercari right now. One of the things that we, and I personally strongly believe, is enable people to try work in different services, in different domains, experience new challenges, get to work with a new set of colleagues. And I believe AI can help to do this easily, because it can help you fill the gaps faster, like in terms of fetching new domain or get to know about a completely new system. So what actions are we taking, or are you taking in your organization to enable this kind of making easy to work across different services and domains?
I'll echo what Michael said earlier. We're not there yet. I think there's still a lot of barriers to enable people to contribute to any code base or to any system. But related to stability and testing and CI and discovering problems in production earlier, one of the barriers for me, and I've seen a lot of my team face, is I'm worried if I change something in a system, or I want to contribute to something that I'm not familiar with, I'm not working in every day, what happens if it goes wrong? I can ask an AI agent to build this whole system for me and deploy it, but what happens when it breaks? I'm the one that's going to get yelled at. So I think it's connected to the stability topic as well. The safer we can make things, the faster we can close the feedback loop, so that when we do something, we know that it's working, or we know that it didn't work, and we can fix it and move quickly. I think is really important. So it's not just enabling AI to do magical things, but doing it safely will help too.
What about you, Michael?
So there's a few things we know. We know that standardization and documentation, it doesn't need to be human created. It can be generated, but standardization, documentation, common patterns, all of these things facilitate the ability for AI to make changes in a reasonably predictable way, meaning it will make the changes in a way that you would like it to be consistent with what you expect from engineering in general, or from the changes you would like to make, regardless of whether or not you have deep expertise in that space. And so actually we have a talk coming up a little later by Katie, who's here, hello, who will be talking a little bit about one of our standardization, one of our frameworks about standardization, and it's a framework for Golang that she's been heavily developing in Mercari. And I think one of the things that we know that standardization helps with making it possible for people to make changes. And I think at some point we will have sufficient levels across other parts of our stack, so that even if you have less experience with some of the other parts of our stack, that the LLMs will have access to all the appropriate information to be able to make those changes in a consistent and an effective way. We have been investing in a couple different projects. One of them is specifically around this area of gathering and collecting all of this knowledge and centralizing it in a way that allows for our systems to be able to pull from that and make those kinds of decisions. And so this kind of standardization is going to be really critical as we move forward. I think the other part is, besides the standardization, is going to be how easy it is for the LLM to be able to evaluate whether or not it made the right change beyond the standardization. And that comes into the ability for it to be able to have a simple loop for testing. So how sufficient is your testing, your unit testing, your integration testing, in such a way that allows the changes to get pushed to an environment, the output or the result of those changes to get evaluated, and that becomes a feedback loop to the LLM to inform it as to whether or not it made the right choices. We're already seeing some of the benefits of that as well. Monorepos are one of the common ways that you often see people starting up new business lines and new products, and that allows for some of that closed loop training a little bit more easily in smaller code bases. And so this is some of the things that I think will be interesting to explore. And some of them we're doing now, and some of them I think we're trying to learn.
I think we discussed this also at plenty in Mercari, the need of standardization in the way we build our backend, the way we grew our services. It was very diverse, let's put it that way, to the sense that working on one service versus working in another, if it's implemented by different teams, might be a completely different experience, and to some extent converging into the same set of standards. I think it makes a lot of sense, because it enables people to sort of being able to contribute easily. One thing that you mentioned before, I think is quite interesting. You want to be able to safely introduce changes or work on a new service that maybe you are not so familiar. And I think probably somebody will discuss also or share today about PJ Palantir, which is very interesting initiative that we are taking some steps. Before trying to, even when you need to build a feature, and because our system is distributed and quite complex, it takes a long time to actually do what we call like investigation phase. And now we have some POCs in which you are able to actually input the query, and it's not perfect, it will be improved, but what usually takes 2-3 days of an engineer going through the code, right now you can still, you can already get some insights about what are the potential endpoints that this is connected to, what are the systems. We are able even to generate some diagrams already that before was not possible. And I think those are, a lot of things are powered by platform and also by providing the right kind of data.
So there's an engineering, so on Mercari's engineering blog, how many of you have read our engineering blog? Just show of hands. All right, pretty good. All right, half the room has. Good. Brad, what's going on? Yeah, there we go, okay.
Sorry. I didn't realize, I thought that was a question for the audience, not for me.
I'm disappointed.
I have read the blog.
So there's a great blog so GOP recently launched. It's our push towards a more global presence. And they produced a bunch of blogs that talked about some of the technology and work that they've been doing. There was a blog that talked about our web monorepo. And in that blog, there was a really great breakdown of the different spec files that were created to basically facilitate better agent development within the monorepo. And so if you're interested in the ways that we're trying to use or craft guidance to support development, I would strongly suggest taking a look at that article because it gives you a little bit of insight. PJ Palantir is a much deeper investment, but even just this set of specs is a really good starting point to say to show how we can provide guidance to the agents and entrust the agents to actually make a bunch of the changes in a consistent way. And the more we develop that ability, the more people who have less experience with maybe the web side of things are able to still take action and the results will be consistent with what the kind of code we're looking for to be generated. So I would, if you want an actual example, that's a good one that I would suggest you take a look at.
This is an interesting point because it also connects a little bit to the vision that maybe it doesn't need to be only an engineer who can write code. Maybe for simple fixes, a PM can actually do that by themselves. Or we also have like this ongoing discussion in the future. Should the role of PM or engineering blend a little bit, or maybe a backend engineer can at some point also make some quick fixes to a front end, doesn't need to wait for a front end engineer to be available. And I think like this supports this vision as well, being able to explore different areas and work across services or disciplines even.
Just not VPs. VPs shouldn't make those changes.
What?
No. It's a bad idea.
It is a bad idea. Believe me. Actually, Brad, yeah, you have this probably an interesting insight because you have been on the product side, you have been on the engineering side, and now you're on data. So you have already win the game. You already went through all the stages.
I have a very diverse.
You have a very diverse
CV. Well, not too diverse. I've been in tech my entire career, but I started programming when I was a kid. And I got into my first startup I participated in was during the dot-com boom. I was in college, like with some friends from MIT. So like I started there, and then when I applied to Google, I joined as a product manager. And now at Mercari, I'm like, data's all the time. And I think, yeah, sorry, I don't know if this is, I'll share this story, different story than I talked about yesterday. As a product manager, I know, like literally, I was, for a few months into my career at Google as a product manager, and I wanted to do something, and I was asking a team for help, and they said, oh yeah, we'll think about it, and I asked again, and they said, yeah, we'll get to it eventually. 3-4 weeks went by, and they didn't get to it, and I was like, this is just JavaScript. I can do it. And I could, and this is like, the nice thing is like I was enabled, like it was possible for a product manager to send a change list, to send a pull request, and make a change, and that was really empowering, and so like, I guess there's always been this part of me that wants to enable everybody to be able to unblock themselves, contribute across, like sort of break down the silos, break down the barriers between different services. And I'm excited that, you know, AI, like whether we use AI or not, I think it's really important for us as, you know, tech professionals to enable us to do awesome things.
Go ahead, Micah.
Sorry, I know this is completely unrelated, but how many of you are familiar with NPM for JavaScript, right? So
Node package manager.
Node package management, right? So how many of you are aware of the company NPM that was around for a little while? Okay, a few. So there's a buddy of mine that started that company, and we worked together at Yahoo briefly. I just wanted to mention this because that comment is just JavaScript. So he worked at Joyent at the time, and he started up NPM, and Joyent said, which is a big name in the node space, made him an offer to buy out NPM, and so when they made him an offer, Isaac, his name's Isaac, he was telling me about this. So they made him an offer. Oh yeah, how much? They offered me $10,000 for NPM. And they said, it's because it's just JavaScript is what they said to him. So
okay, all right, let's move to the let's stop offending like people who like JavaScript. It's not just JavaScript. JavaScript is a very, very important language. So let's talk a little bit about the future. Don't mention JavaScript anymore, Brad, please. Moving forward to a little bit of like maybe what is coming for our engineers or maybe in the industry in terms of the future. Like, how do you think, or how would you like to make use of AI to accelerate or even empower or change or transform the experience that we have right now when we are building our products?
This is definitely connected to what we were just talking about too. Sorry, I got JavaScript on my mind. I'm sorry. It was 18 years ago. It was 18 years ago. So it was like pre-React, pre.
We're not making friends here.
I feel like I made you feel bad. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry. No, I didn't mean it that way.
It's just data.
It's just data. No, well, no, but I like that. This is. Like, I want that attitude. I want people to, like, yeah, it's just data. Like, why? I don't need to go and ask a data engineer to write a SQL query for me. I've met people at companies that if they wanted to get data from the data warehouse, they submit a ticket with the query. It's like, oh, I want to get the data. Here's my query or my draft query. And then it's reviewed by a database administrator who double checks and makes sure it's going to be performant and it's not going to be too expensive and it's going to give them the answer that they want. And they have to like wait a week to get that answer. So I would rather have people be naive and say, yeah, I can do that. And then they go try it. And maybe they fail. Maybe they do. Like maybe it does cost $100 to run this query when it could have cost $1. That's where we need this feedback loop to come in and say like, hey, you could rewrite it this way. Like, and this is where again like AI can help give that feedback. AI can unblock us and say, hey, yeah, I see you're trying to, like I'm imagining like Clippy, Microsoft Clippy saying like, hey, I see you're writing a SQL query. How about, instead of doing a cross join, you like make it 2 subqueries and then join the result and it'll be much faster based on a true story.
I think one interesting thing that we are already implementing, I think Kimura-san mentioned before, and is going to be also maybe mentioned later when we talk about PG Double. But I think I would like to consider thinking in different terms in the way we develop our product. We don't need a person with the title of PM to write a spec and then somebody from the design team to come and provide the perfect design, and then only then engineers start like asking questions and moving things. Actually, for some of the new projects that we are starting, we decide we no longer need to have a completely spec. Actually, let's use mockups instead and discuss around the mockups. And the mockups can be generated using tools, Figma, Gemini, whatever, to the point that engineers are able to generate the specs themselves. And then those specs can be reviewed or refined. But the important point is like where we start taking those actions can be shifted. It's not only a PM who can take those actions, can also be an engineer who maybe bothers like when they use the product, why this works this way, or why is this clunky, or why we don't have this animation here. And they can come up with a proposal that before only came from the product department. What do you think, Michael?
Well, I mean, I like the way you were phrasing that. I was thinking, everything from I have a business problem to I have pushed a solution into production is a series of confidence building steps, right? So at first you have low confidence. You have an idea, but you don't know if it's going to work. And then you start to formulate that idea, you develop specs, you start to create, bring in engineering to design and build the solution, and they test it, they validate that the solution's going to technically work, and then it goes through a series of, releases, and then eventually you have something that you put out into production, and you hope that it's going to start earning revenue. And that entire cycle is long and expensive. And I think one of the things that we're going to see increasingly is a couple changes. One, hopefully that cycle starts to shorten because we're able to reduce the amount of time and more importantly, reduce the number of people needed to bring that idea into fruition, out into production. So we'll see a shortening of the time and a shrinking of the team. And when we start to see these more squad-based approaches that can release or evaluate and maybe discard bad ideas in a faster cycle, what you're going to start to see is a broadening of changes and capabilities coming out, which is going to increase weight on the experimentation side. How do we have a bunch of experiments running at the same time to evaluate? And it's also going to start pushing the boundaries of what our structures were designed. So we have some very specific infrastructure investments that have taken a long time to get into place. But as we want to start to extend to new ideas, how do we accommodate those new ideas in a safe and secure and compliant way? It will also be a bit of a challenge. So I think the squad model is going to release a whole bunch of new innovation, and I think that you'll see a shortening of the time as a result of that.
I think this is interesting because at Mercari we always want to try so many things, and usually we try to do a lot of things in parallel, and we only stop when we actually literally we don't have people to assign to those projects. But what you mentioned, like if we are able to reduce the number of people that you effectively need to execute a project, that means that we can generate or try more projects in parallel, right? Which is going to affect the CI/CD pipelines, so we have to figure it out.
This is why it's an exciting time to be in platform. There was one other thing I wanted to mention too. This was a revelation from a counterpart over at Microsoft that we recently spoke with, and they were implementing something that I thought was particularly interesting. And we haven't started this so much at Mercari, but I wanted to share it because I think it's a fascinating idea, which is this idea that you intentionally spin up efforts that are counter to the work you're doing. And the idea is you want to disrupt yourself. So you come up with a new product or a new way of approaching something that you're currently doing to see if you can do it better, to see if whatever comes out may completely transform the way you would think about solving a problem. And the best part about doing this from an AI standpoint is as AI is generating more in this code, you're a lot less emotionally attached to it. So it's okay if it's not, if it disrupts and it breaks what we're currently, it breaks the model of what we currently have and it brings something new in place. And so if you think about all the stuff that we're doing today, and you could afford to take 3 people and spin up a completely different way of doing that and evaluate, would that be a better way of doing it? And you can objectively determine that. That can enable you not only to disrupt yourself faster, but also get ahead of whoever else is coming out there, because the bigger your company is, the slower naturally it's going to move, and there's smaller guys that are hungry and faster.
I think that is the key point. If you can find a way to disrupt yourself, that means that the competition can also do that. So the sooner you find out and you build resilience around your business, the better. We have 1 minute and 20 seconds left, so maybe we can do our wrap-up round. Yeah. Brad, go ahead.
And I can wrap up saying that we need to measure, you said like we need to like objectively see that we're improving something, and the more we can measure that, we can have a feedback loop where we know we're seeing improvement, we're managing errors, we're improving some KPI, that like data is really important to have that tight feedback loop, and I think that's how we can move faster safely.
Michael.
I think
45 seconds.
That's going to be hard. I'll just say, I think the more we have these conversations, the more we engage, the worst thing that we could do is silo ourselves and think we have answers. Go copy all the best ideas you can find and evaluate whether they work for you, and keep pushing on those ends because we're all in this brand new era of discovery right now.
Go bold.
Go bold.
All right, and we love JavaScript, by the way. Thank you.
Cats, Michael, Brad, thanks for the great presentation. カルロスさん、マイケルさん、ブラッドさん、ありがとうございました。本セッションのですね、質疑応答は皆様左手の Ask the Speaker エリアで行っております。ご質問のある方はぜひご参加ください。
日本語も話せますので、気軽に日本語でもどうぞ。